Is it working?
Yeah. Working, girl. Right. Welcome everyone to the second ever KEV Talks.
Yay!
Yes, that's right. This is the second one. The first one we did in 2022, and I wanted to do it again, so we're doing it again. This, for those who are not aware on internet land, I've asked my friends to come up with PowerPoint presentations about whatever they like, just as long as it's roughly 10 minutes maximum. Roughly. Charlie.
Pretty sure you said 15, but that's fine.
Nah. Yep, we're gonna start this off with Kendrick's.
Yay!
Dateline, 1960. A small puppeteer in LA is commissioned by a coffee company to make a series of 9-second long ads for their coffee company. Little did they know they'd create one of the most terrifying villains in American history. You know those weird YouTube ads and videos you get where somebody calculates the total sentence of a villain in a movie, like Victor Cornway from The Were-Rabbit is sentenced to like 100 years behind bars if he got caught for everything he did? Well, I've decided, as a present to you, because I like torturing you lot, I have watched all 140 ads Jim Henson made for Wilkins Coffee and have calculated, based on current US law and both federal law and state law based on the state of California, because that's where all the ads were made and where Jim Henson was based, I have calculated the total sentence for Wilkin, the main character of the Wilkins Coffee ads. If you've not watched the Wilkins Coffee ads, what's wrong with you? Go watch them, for God's sakes. They're fucking hilarious, because Jim Henson got 9 seconds to advertise the coffee for each one, because ads were generally a lot shorter in the 1960s, because not everyone had a TV. And, which obviously meant, because it's the Muppets we're talking about here, it had to get to the needless violence really quickly as well. So, some of the things he's done are quite horrific, and yeah, there was 140 of them in total. I will provide Kevin with a link to the playlist for all of them.
Boo. I'm actually just gonna play some, I'm just editing the video just to, play some of them right now.
Put your money in here and you get a cup of Wilkins coffee. I don't want any. Then push that button. How about a cup of Wilkins? With this camera, I shoot pictures of people who don't drink Wilkins coffee. I'm ready. Shoot. Anybody else? You'll like this new car. Yeah? It's got a built-in maker for Wilkins instant coffee. Who needs it? Well, you can't sell them all. Got your parachute? I forgot it. How about the Wilkins coffee? I forgot that too. You'll never forget this. Any last requests, like for a cup of Wilkins coffee? No. You don't drink Wilkins? No. How shocking. Want a cup of Wilkins coffee? What'll Mr. Wilkins do if I don't? Oh, he'll probably put his foot down.
There's a few of them for community coffee, which is like a sort of like an outlet for multiple different coffee companies. They sort of import from different coffees and make a big blend, and they also output for different companies as well. And they're still going, believe it or not. I've discovered that they're still going today. Haven't found anything on Wilkins Coffee though. Sadly, I don't think Wilkins Coffee is still around, which is a shame really. Maybe Wilkins murdered everyone. That's what I choose to believe. But yes, I have calculated everything he's done and tallied it up for both fines based on the current value of the US dollar and current prices for various things. And I have totted up the years because I have no life. Join me on this journey. So in some of the early ads, and indeed some general ads, there's a lot of different crimes going on here. We'll start with the tamest one, shall we? Property damage. In total, there are 6 counts of purposeful property damage, by which I mean he has purposely damaged property that wasn't his in the ad. Obviously, there are certain things that go askew, and it was a pure accident. You can't really count that as property damage. It's an accidental damage. But when he actually purposely damaged it, in California law, depending on the severity of it and what you did, it can be a 1-year sentence or a fine. Out of the 6 of them, 2 of them are fine-worthy, 4 of them are jail-worthy, as it turns out, based on different outcomes at the time. One of which includes another charge we'll come back to later, involving Watkins' house, and another one involves him literally smashing up his car as a valet to get the point across, buy my damn coffee, you idiot. And the value of the car looks vaguely like a Studebaker. Has been calculated up. So total fines for everything damaged, the house blowing up, a tree he cuts down, a public tree, to smack Watkins on the head, poor lad, and the house, looking at the house, it's probably a 2-bedroom house. Roughly, including legal fees, which would be covered in the fine, $900,000 and 4 years in jail. Keep that number in mind. Next on, we go to general assault. This is him kind of punching someone or smacking him with something in the head or something like that. Not necessarily using a weapon, because that's a different charge. We will get to that. But in terms of normal assault, there are 11 counts in total, each one totaling 5 to 10 years. Out of them, believe it or not, 8 of them are 10-year worthy and only 2 of them are 5-year worthy. So there's that. Threats. Generally threatening and blackmailing people is not tolerated, ladies and gentlemen. If you're just threatening someone without something of lethal force, it can be 6 months in prison. If you're threatening someone with a weapon, like he literally threatens the audience with a cannon at one point, fucking hell, and a gun, I think, as well, that is a full year. And there's 5 counts in total. Assault with a deadly weapon. Now, this is the bit I was on about earlier. That is obviously assaulting someone with like a baton or an actual weapon. There are 17 counts of that, each one with a minimum sentence of 10 years under California state law as of 2025. And then we go to firearms charges. Believe it or not, there are firearms laws in America. Owning of illegal firearms, and what classifies as a legal firearm, is anything that constitutes in California. It's a bit weird because certain handguns are banned, including the snub-nosed revolver he uses at one point. And indeed, believe it or not, you're legally not allowed to own cannons in California. So there's 2 legal firearms charges, each one is a 5-year sentence. Arson! He burns down a building! Cool! That's a 2-year sentence. Don't really need to go into that. Blackmail, he blackmails the audience at one point, and indeed Watkins. The same one. That would technically count as the same one because he's blackmailing a group. California state law's weird. That's 1 year in prison. Holding hostage and kidnapping. I've lumped these 2 together because they're sort of the same thing. Holding hostage is where you literally take someone away and hold hostage and is holding them as hostage. Kidnapping, obviously we all know what kidnapping is. There are 4 counts in total. Each one is 20 years in prison. And then we go to the fun ones. Let's start with illegal explosives. Owning illegal explosives, like the bomb he uses to blow up Watkins' house or anything like that, is a 20-year sentence, and there are 7 of those in total throughout all the ads. And then we go to attempted murder. This is obviously an you all know what attempted murder is. That is 12 total counts of attempted murder. That is 15 years in jail for each one. What else do we have here? We have actual murder. This, obviously, is the biggest charges of them all. There are 29 counts. 29 counts of murder. Now, under California state law, there is no death sentence. But under federal law, there is still a death sentence. Depending on the severity of the crimes, you can be charged with under federal law and state law. So state law states it's a 30-year minimum sentence for murder, and federal law is a 30-year to death sentence. There are 2 murders in question which constitute a death sentence. The most infamous, of course, being when he literally guts him with a rapier and wipes off the blood afterwards. No, that's him banned from the Olympics for sure. So that in total is 30 years per sentence, but 2 of those are death sentences, bear in mind. And then we come to the last one, terrorism. Yep, Wilkins is officially a terrorist. of 2 counts. One, blowing up Watkins' house again, that really wasn't a good one, and there's another case of him purposely blowing someone up as well. Both of which, under US law, would count as an act of terrorism and an act of disturbing the peace. That is death sentence, end of. There is no the US are very strict with it. So, the bits you've all been waiting for. The total sentence and fineage of Wilkins Coffee. Fines in total is $900,000 plus legal fees on top of that. The total year sentence, 1,510 and a half years in jail and 4 death sentences. The lesson of note is, if it turns out Wilkins Coffee is still going, for the love of fuck, buy it all.
Anybody else?
And next up we have Kim.
This is KEV. And to start with KEV because it's Big Kev's big day. And he's pulling. Oh yeah. Okay. There's 2 pussycats. There's KEV with the nose, the brown nose, and the one closest with the pink nose, closest to me, is Tommy. A lady called Emma arrived in Shetland working as a police constable, and she was really lonely there all on her own, so she got 2 cats, and that's it, 2 brothers, KEV and Tommy, and they were so different. Tommy liked to roam. He was never in. She thought maybe it was because her flatmate had a dog, a chocolate lab, who was wanting to be friendly, but Tommy was having none of it. So he only really basically went in to eat and sleep and just was always out and about, meeting people. And KEV, he slept for 23 and a half hours a day, she reckons.
Same.
He just would only go out if it was baking heat. Basically, he was very much an indoor cat. And Tommy went on to meet a lot of friends, make a lot of friends in the town and in shops and whatnot. And she started a Facebook page, Tommy, The Adventures of Tommy. But then a sad day came and she had to move on. She was posted to Fort William. So she inquired in Fort William what the feeling would be about a cat that really needed to walk about and go in shops, pubs, bars, and what would it be like, and she was advised, nah, he's better off in Shetland. So she decided to go online and look for a home for Tommy, and criteria was that Tommy had to have 24/7 access to his home, but he would just do his own thing, basically. And lucky for Emma, Maggie Sanderson came along and said yes, she would take Tommy in and she would even continue his Facebook page. So Tommy is now the King of Hillhead in Lerwick. That's his house behind him, Hillbank. I don't know, does anybody else follow Tommy?
Yeah, me.
She's got this challenge at the moment. He wears these necktie things and she's trying to do a whole advent of different neckties. But she failed. I'll tell you why she failed later. That's him, King of Hillbank. That's him in his back garden. That's his patio. And his daddy made a wooden cat ladder so he can go down this rather steep drop into his garden. He just lives like real luxury. Now, one of Tommy's haunts, and one of the places that offered to look after him when she was asking the people of Lerwick if they would rehome him, was the Thule Bar in Lerwick, right in the front. And the guy there said, Tommy can stay with us, but we do have to chuck him out at 1 in the morning and we have to lock up. So he would make sure that Tommy was always fed and looked after, but that was what it would be. Recently, they bought him that lovely big sofa bed, and it stays on the counter. That's his bed. I can't believe he's having a couple. He wanders all over the town. That's him in Specsavers, I think. When we were there, he had fallen asleep in a box in Specsavers or where to before, and they carried him across to the full bar and just put him on the counter. So everybody looks after him. He's got a luggage tracker on him now. This isn't the photo I wanted. There was a lovely photo of him in Harry's store, department store, and he was on a baby's carry cot thing, licking his bum. They don't seem to care, and then you know, he leaves far everywhere. I think that was maybe him in Co, I'm not very sure, but he used to just sleep in shops. It still does. Now Emma came back on holiday. She came back to Shetland for a wedding in, I think it was 2020 or something. Can't remember. But she wanted to see Tommy, and nobody knew where he was. They would text him and say, oh, he was here half an hour ago, and he was there, and he took photos, and there he was everywhere, and she spent a day tearing around the town. But she caught up with him, and that's her with her cat, and she must have been heartbroken to leave him. That's Puss in Boots. He's in Boots the chemist. He's always in there. If you're looking for him in Lerry, you just need to go in some of these shops and say, oh, he was here 10 minutes ago, he went that way, and everybody knows. That's him in Eamon Co. That's an old photo, but you know, he's on the pillows. And photos of him in towels, and there was a really sad picture when Eamon Co shut. Somebody took a photo of him wanting in, and he was just at the door. I don't understand why nobody would open the door. But a lot of the staff he stayed in the building and worked for Superdrug, so he now goes into Superdrug. That's him at the vet. He's got an abscess somewhere, gum or something, and he was taken to the vet. He's always in there. And that's quite sad. Maggie Sanderson's next door neighbours were moving, and they were packing boxes, and that was him looking in the window as the neighbours were leaving. Oh, so sad. That's the first view I ever have had of Tommy in the flesh. We were up there on holiday, went specially to see him too, and there was a hole in the pavement there, sort of between drains, I think, but Tommy didn't know that. I think he just heard noises, and he was just fixed on this hole. He would sit there for days and days gazing at this hole. Council filled it in, and I think everybody thought, oh no, but I think maybe it was the best thing. She was called Tommy's Hole. Tommy's Hole, yeah. And that's when I went and spoke to him, and he said, good afternoon, and follow me. And he took me to the Thule bar. Really, Tommy, you went in? So, just had to go in. There we are. Okay, I'll recognise that t-shirt. Yep. So he just gets to sit on chairs and on the counter, and he made sure that we got a drink, and he was a really good little host. And outside, we went back to the hotel, maybe it was a couple of days later, and I had Bruce with me there on the left, and they both shared an afternoon staring down in the hole. To give him his full title. And I got a cuddle, and he was having a lovely long cuddle, and somebody came in and wanted to talk to him, and he really got so much pain. So Tommy, there he is, the king of Hill Head. He's got beds all over the house, all lovely fluffy beds. And he took that photo mid-toiletry. He wasn't very pleased, I think, there, snotty face. And he's an active member of the household. That's him, I think she said, is this him looking for a tipple or a topple? But it's rather a nice house that he has there. Yeah, that's him at a party. Where he's at his happiest. That's his daddy's retirement. And he suffers from a few hangovers from time to time, I think. That's really a bit severe, that one. When the rain stopped the other day, after a couple of days rain and wind, that's the best photo she could get of him. Just a blur. Get out of my road, woman. Never mind this Advent photo. And that's him tearing out of the building. He went down to the Thule, and you might have seen these recently, Kevin. That was just the other day looking for his dreamies, and he found them. Oopsie! He does like the party. That's on the bar on his sofa bed. Oh, it's scandalous. He rushed out from a party, or he was found scrapping in the street. He was naked. His necktie and his luggage tracker thing were lying on the street, and he staggered into Specsavers, and there he is on the chair reserved for people wanting piercings. So they should have just done it, shouldn't they? That was another trip that we made, and I had grabbed what I thought was Bruce Dickinson. I grabbed the wrong cat. Different cat. Anyway, he was pleased to meet Tommy, and what could I have taken out of my pocket there?
A pint.
He'd been walkabout for a few days, and his mummy didn't know where he was, and we bumped into him. And his house is part of the way to our bed breakfast. So he followed us. That's us going up Pit Lane in the Lerwick. And everybody spoke to him. You'd meet teenagers and they'd just go, "Hi Tommy," and just pass by. And we got to the top of the lane and there were 3 ladies out having a fag break. And they work in the rehab sort of hub. And they said, "Oh, hi Tommy, are you coming in?" Not needing us tonight. Oh, yes, he's been into the dreamies. They keep them there for him as well. He's got friends everywhere. That's him in his garden. Pink nose. He has been known to walk across the stage. He just goes into the theatre and walks across the stage. He goes to council meetings. He just walks into the town hall and he goes into the council chambers and he just goes everywhere. And there was a lovely film that the Shetland Islands Council put on for their, what was it, their anniversary of the Islands Council?
50th.
Was it 50th? Yeah, it would be. And they had this lovely film of everybody that works for the council doing what they do best and all the rest of it. And it finished with a picture of Tommy at the stained glass window in the town hall. And that's this year's calendar. His first mummy, Emma, took out a few calendars before she moved away. It was maybe one. But every year, Maggie puts together a calendar. She pays for the whole thing. All the money goes to charity. And it's usually about £4,000 or so that he raises. And he raises money through going to other events. I foolishly bid again for an audience with Tommy on Children in Need, Shetland. So I won it, yeah. An audience with Tommy, there he is with some of the checks from last year. So he does quite well. Aha! Police station's another of his haunts. However, this is an outtake from the latest Shetland. I don't know if you're familiar with these 2 ladies, yes. Yeah, that's what we didn't see in the final episode, but so that's Tommy. Okay. We're almost wearing a torch tie.
rolling.
Cool. So, yeah, welcome to the powerful Pussy Magnet Permian PowerPoint presentation. I was going to do a whole thing with the letters coming flying in. Anyway, so I was determined that my presentation would not be like this. Oh shit. It was meant to be a video. Anyway, forget that. So, when was the Permian? So it was a period in the Paleozoic era, which was the one that started at the time of the Cambrian explosion. 541 million years ago, that is over 500 million years. And it ended with the beginning of the Triassic 252 million years ago. So it is in fact older than the dinosaurs and way cooler and so overrated. So the Permian was the last period of the Paleozoic and it ended with the Permian extinction event. The Permian lasted from 299 to 252 million years ago. So during this time the Earth had only one single giant continent, Pangaea, and of course the single ocean, Panthalassa. So here we have Pangaea, and yeah, Orkney is right there.
We have a laser pointer?
So what was Pangaea like? If we go back to the map, you can see there are mountain ranges across here. Incidentally, this in Greenland, Norway, the Highlands, and Appalachia, all part of the same mountain range. That's across oceans now, but it was all part of the same, which is really fucking cool. So obviously what mountains do is they create rain shadows. They stop warm, moist air coming in from the ocean and they block it. Also, Pangaea is just a really big fucking continent. So that prevented rain from coming into the very centre, which meant that aside from some green belts around the coast, Pangaea was completely covered in desert. So who lived there? There was three significant reptile groups: anapsids, diapsids, and synapsids. Therapsids are a clade or a subgroup of the synapsids, and various amphibians and bugs. For some reason the animation worked for that. The ones I'm going to talk about today are the synapsids and the therapsids. I was going to talk about everybody else, but I didn't have time, allegedly. So synapsids were also known as pelycosaurs, but that term is considered outdated now. They form a group of animals which includes all of today's mammals. During the Permian period, they were in this weird phase between reptiles and mammals and had sort of traits of both, and that's exactly why I like them. They have a single temporal fenestra, which is a pair of holes in the back of the skull. Anapsids have none, and diapsids have two. So, Dimetrodon. You'll see this guy on dinosaur posters. He is not a goddamn dinosaur. You want to upset Charlie, call a Dimetrodon a dinosaur. It lived, well, you can see when it lived, and it was a carnivore with differently sized teeth. This is interesting because it shows the synapsid group are starting to take on a trait that is unique to mammals, which is teeth specialization. So this means that there are teeth that are shaped differently to do different things. So in humans, that's incisors, canines, and molars. The sail on its back could have multiple uses. It could be for display, or it could be for thermal regulation. It might have been cold-blooded and it might have just used it to heat itself up, or it might have been pumped full of blood and helped it to cool down in the heat. Then we have this fucking thing. So fucking stupid. You get a lot of weird looking things in the Permian. So that is Cotylarhynchus, and it was a herbivore. Scientists think it lived on plants with very little nutrients because of just the shape of it. There's a lot of intestine in that bad boy. And to be honest, this was probably quite a common thing. Herbivores living in a desert probably have to live on rubbish. It had short limbs with big claws, and it might have used them for defense, but it might have just used them to pull plants closer to it. Therapsids are a clade of synapsids, that is a group of organisms stemming from one common ancestor. And they were the first, they took the traits that synapsids had and they made them, improved on them. So we've got more clearly differentiated teeth, like what Dimetrodon had, but better. A standing posture with the legs directly underneath the body rather than sprawling out like a lizard. The loss of the parietal or third eye, which reptiles have. Not all of the therapsids lost it in the Permian, but they were on their way to do that. And then glands in their skin. You're going to see this a lot. It's debated whether or not they had hair or if they were scaleless and bald. There might have been whiskers based on pits that they found in the bones in their snouts, but as is everything is in science, it's heavily debated. I fucking love these guys. I freaking love them so much. I have a tattoo of one on my leg. And this is why they're the best animals ever. So they have enormous saber teeth, and they were in fact the first predators on land possibly ever to have had them. Their jaws could open up to 90 degrees, and that's without unhinging. They were probably ambush predators, so they would stalk their prey, pounce, deliver a bite, and then allow the blood loss to weaken the animal before they killed it. So they began as small predators during the Middle Permian, but grew to enormous bear-like proportions by the time of their extinction. So it was warm-blooded to an extent, so it could maintain a stable body temperature regardless of external conditions, but not as efficiently as today's mammals do. But they probably had a rudimentary eardrum, and a keen sense of smell, and a Jacobson's organ. You ever see an animal making this weird face? That's what they're doing, they're smelling through their mouth. Unlike modern mammals, they had no upper palate, so they didn't have a roof to their mouth. So it couldn't chew and breathe at the same time because its mouth and nasal cavity were one and the same, and it probably just skipped the chewing entirely. They grew teeth continuously throughout their life, particularly their saber teeth. There was a fossil found that had a mature saber tooth in the socket and 2 more queuing up behind it. And again, they might have had whiskers, they might have had fur, they might have been bald, naked creatures. Inostrancevia was the largest species of gorgonopsid. It had a full body length of 3.5 meters or 11 feet. Saber teeth were 15 centimeters long and it weighed up to 400 kilos. So it was found in modern-day Russia and southern Africa, especially the Karoo Basin in South Africa. They were apex predators. Their prey included the armored Scutosaurus, which was an anapsid, but that's not relevant today. So they walked with their elbows kind of sticking out and their rear limbs kind of in line, but then they ran like mammals do. And this is an Inostrancevia, isn't it cool? We have this guy, moss chops. Fucking moss chopped. They're tanky herbivores, and they had thick skulls, so they probably head-butted each other. They might have lived in water like hippos do. Their legs are, unlike Dimetrodon and to some extent Gorgonopsid, right underneath their bodies, no sticky elbows. So this meant they could move more easily, and they could even sprint if they needed to. And again, they spent most of their time eating because what they lived on was rubbish. And we have these guys, the Lystrosaurs. I don't know where the thingy went for that. But they only had 2 teeth. They had a pair of tusks and a beak. Herbivores, they were found absolutely everywhere during the Permian. They actually survived into the Triassic. And it is thought that by the time of the Triassic, they were actually starting to hibernate. They lived in herds, they lived in burrows, and some of them could grow up to 3 meters long, I want to say, because they could get quite big, or they could be dog-sized. We have cynodons, dog tooth, that name means, and they are pretty much what we have evolved from. They are, like all the others were relatives, this is an ancestor. So it had an upper palate, it had fur, it could lay eggs, it had differently positioned jaw bones, it didn't need as many bones in its jaws, so they became our inner ear bones. It had mobile lips like reptiles do, but yeah, this is our ancestor, which is really fucking cool. Sweat. So,
Okay.
Basically, yeah, reptiles probably needed to keep their eggs moist during the Permian. It's a very dry time. So the scientists think that they began to sweat from their bellies to keep the eggs moist. And then, you know, the young might have lapped at the sweat, they might have drank the sweat. Sweat contains salt, minerals, lactic acid, and proteins. And yeah, milk, I'm afraid, is sweat. Isn't that lovely? Think of that next time you eat some cheese. Or whatever. Do with that information what you will. And rocks. Fucking rocks. Knowing your rocks obviously is vital to knowing your prehistory. It tells us not only about the fossilised remains of animals, but the state of the earth at the time, because it absorbs minerals, gases, etc. And different kinds of rocks tell us different things. Sedimentary rocks like sandstone are good for preserving fossils, and that's why there's so many Devonian fossil fish in Orkney, but unfortunately that is a story for another time. The igneous rocks of these Siberian traps are the telltale sign of the enormous lava flood which ended the Permian. And this was the Permian extinction, also known as the Great Dying. So all this lava and gas and lovely things bubbling up from the bottom of the earth poisoned the atmosphere and oceans with sulfur and carbon dioxide. So that was the level at the Permian extinction, and this is it today, even with global warming. So just, it wouldn't have been nice to breathe, it wouldn't have been good to be asthmatic during that time. And obviously fires spread, coal deposits and forests ignited and just added to the problem. And it probably created a runaway greenhouse effect, and it was the world's most catastrophic extinction event. So 95% of all life on Earth died out, literally, and we are the 5% that survived. So think about that, 5%, we were that close to being completely extinct. And funnily enough, there was also, as if there wasn't enough problems in the world, there was also an asteroid hit in Brazil. Not big enough to cause problems on its own, it wasn't the size of the one that ended the dinosaurs, but it did add to the current problems. And all this runaway gas destroyed the ozone layer, and not only did they have to cope with toxic air, acid rain, lava, fire, they also had solar and cosmic radiation to deal with, so everyone was asthmatic and sunburned. How fun. Marine life was the hardest hit, as always happens during mass extinctions, unfortunately. The Permian actually had the largest insects ever to exist on Earth. There were griffin flies, not dragonflies the size of a TV. And they went extinct in droves. And obviously the herbivores suffered the heaviest losses because they were the first in the food chain to be hit. And then of course the carnivores starved because they had no prey. So this is how it relates to rocks. We can actually see the evidence today. So you've got the igneous rocks here and here, and this is the size of the lava eruption. That is bigger than entire countries, so it is no wonder that it completely fucked up everything for everybody. Does anybody have any questions? No?
What's an animal?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't actually know. That's the one thing I can't. Anyway, thanks for watching.
She's got it for the
There should be a record of every time we see that goddamn cat.
You need to turn up all our events because I have a physical picture of it.
I know.
I may have stolen that off Kevin's Facebook page specifically for this. So, ladies, gentlemen, caffeine-based life forms and everything else in between, welcome to my now second KEV Talk.
Who are you?
Who am I? I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know anything anymore. So, for the three of you that were at my last one, you will remember what I talked about. My main interest, not the Roman numeral L, but steam railways. Leaving the question, what the hell do I talk about this time? So, the obvious thought was, right, let's go for something a bit more specific, more focused. But what? First thought was the Highland Railway. It's a rather odd little railway with an odd history that it basically came into being to serve Orkney, and their unique approach to paintwork and various other things like that. But then I realised, no, actually there's a far more interesting railway that I could talk about. A short, not very important railway in the top left-hand corner of Wales by the name of the Merioneth and Llantysilio Railway Traction Company Limited. A very long name for a very short line. Not much is known about the early years of the railway. It seemed to be a collection of horse-drawn tramways and wagonways, which in the 1860s were they merged together to form one company just to try and rationalise and make it a more sensible operation. About this time, they obtained their first locomotive.
It's a bit small.
Yeah, pertinent comment. A very much second-hand Norris type ex-contractor's loco, which, to quote one of the men that had to work with it, was twice as awkward as the donkeys and the horses that were used on the railway, but half as useful. Being capable of only hauling a couple of wagons at best, going uphill and downhill had absolutely no stopping power. Also at the same time, around this time, the newly formed railway had aspirations of extending to the village of Llanmad, employing the services of the notorious and infamous surveyor Mr. Peter McIntyre, best described as a chaotic individual. It's through this that we have any records of early days of the railway, namely the extension to Llanmad, serving the village and potentially gold mine traffic. Yes, the only actual records that we have of the early days of the railway are his correspondence, which also interestingly are the first noted reference to dragons in the area. And apparently that has affected the correspondence somewhat, as it is now singed. Also some recorded photos of and yes, his own handwritten notes from his visits to the area when surveying also make note of dragons and just, yes. Again, early records of the railway. Not an awful lot is known about that from that period onwards until the early preservation era, other than a brief reference in the handwritten notes recommending a new locomotive from the firm of Huntingdon and Pottage of Crewe. This was the locomotive supplying a small 040 tank engine, which seemed to be the only motive power that the railway had for the next century. Again, not much is known about the railway until what's best known as the early preservation era, when a short series of films, documentaries and watercolours were made by renowned filmmakers Oliver Postgate and Peter Furman, famous for their work on the possibility of life on other planets and uncovering the forgotten sagas of Noggin the Nog. So yes, the words. The early preservation era, which they covered, was probably the most interesting period of the railway's history, covering such bizarre events as their locomotive becoming the first base for the Bromley and District Choral Society, and the colourful characters that worked there at the time, who all seemed to be under the impression that the locomotive was alive and treated it as such, and to all intents and purposes it did appear to be. At this time, dragons make a reappearance in the area when one was found in the thought to be extinct volcano of Smoke Hill by the side of the track, hatched in the locomotive Ivor, his firebox. This dragon was later known as Idris. By the time these short films are being made, the railway was basically running a local delivery service, serving local businesses and carrying very small loads around the area. Consequently, was not very profitable, and ultimately faced bankruptcy and would almost nationalisation and the sale of the locomotive and replacement with diesel and just a general massive upheaval. Enter local wealthy individual, Mrs. Porty, who in her own words did the stupidest and most expensive thing of her life when she purchased the entire railway, specifically so nothing would have to change. Everything could carry on as normal. Other events in this era were the short spell where, due to a bizarre incident involving an escaped elephant from a circus, the locomotive Ivor was sent to perform with said circus as Ivor the singing engine. During this time, obviously the one and only locomotive for the railway being away is not good for business, and so they had to improvise with their one and only foray into modern, in inverted commas, traction, with what was known as the Juggernaut. Of dubious origin, and which ultimately basically led to the reintroduction of horse transport. It seldom worked, if at all, and ultimately met its end when it derailed and fell into a lake. The dragon issue reared its head again during the time of the short films, and when in order to, the volcano, which had previously been active enough to sustain the dragons, became dormant, so was converted to gas-powered to sustain the local dragon population. This worked for a short spell, however, ultimately came to an end when it became too expensive, and also through decimalisation and the complete lack of half crowns on which to run the meter. And yes, not an awful lot is there. Not an awful lot happened between the end of the short series of documentaries and until the present day, apart from a brief period in the early 2000s where, I forgot as well, after the gas-fired volcano became dormant or unusable, the dragons were rumoured to have been relocated to the gold mine owned by the then rather eccentric Mr. Dinwiddie. However, rumours of this are unconfirmed. Nobody quite knows what actually became of the dragons. The railway faded into obscurity, apart from a brief period in the early 2000s when it was used, of all things, to advertise digital TV in Wales. A bizarre choice, but memorable nonetheless. And as far as I'm aware, the railway just is bumbling along quietly in the background, doing its own little thing as it has done and probably will ad infinitum. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending my KEV talk. Several of the short stories are available for anyone's perusal should they wish later.
Hi, hello everyone, I'm Kevin. Welcome to my KEV talk on how to make a really good horror video game. Why does it jump by 2?
Shouldn't do.
It shouldn't. Alright.
If you click from beginning, then maybe it won't present a mode and then it might.
Okay, but I put so much video in mine that when we were doing it, presenting it would crash.
Okay, I'll Or just association.
So this one is kind of held together by hopes and dreams. Right, how to make a really good horror video game. In my completely unqualified, personal, subjective opinion, which shouldn't be taken seriously, but I do like playing horror games, so there will be gore and nudity and at least one jump scare. I think. I can't remember.
I'm worried that there's that warning in a photo of me.
Makes sense to me.
So what is horror? Horror is defined as a powerful emotion of intense fear, dread, revulsion, often caused by something shocking, terrifying, or grotesque. Picture unrelated. So that leads me to ask, why the hell would anyone want to consume media that's horrific? Because we're little sickos. But also, people enjoy horror media for the thrilling rush from simulated danger, the psychological release of confronting fear safely, the novelty of intense experiences, and the social bonding from shared scares. All while knowing they are protected from real harm, causing a mix of fear and relief. So what makes a horror game different from a horror movie? Well, I ask you the question, have you ever watched a horror movie and had thoughts like this? Oh, it works, thank fuck.
Why would you answer the phone? Why would you answer the phone? Like, you know that the killer calls you before he starts trying to kill you. Why would you do that?
What do you want?
No, just hang up and get out of there. Jesus Christ.
I'm on you. It's showtime. Then why don't you show your face, you fucking coward?
Language. My pleasure. Why would you assume the door wouldn't be locked? That's dumb as hell! What are you doing? That's not a window that you can open! Just get out of there! Why would you look behind you? You can hear him! He will be going to your... You can hear him! You can hear him running! Why not grab a knife? You could just grab a knife and then you have something to defend yourself with. Are those bottles of wine? Throw a whole bottle of wine at his head. See if he's still running after you then. Why are you just standing there? Why not just keep moving away from the house? Oh my god! Yeah, for real, Gary, don't! Oh my god! Of course that was gonna happen, Gary. You dumb idiot. You absolute idiotic asshole. God damn it.
Well, in a well-made horror video game, it's you that's in control, so it's your fault if you do dumb shit and die. So how do you make a good horror video game? Horror isn't just fear, it's tension, anxiety, disgust, and a great horror game can make you feel those even after multiple playthroughs. Well, the example I'm going to keep coming back to is the Outlast Horrors, which is like my favorite game at the moment. I got a tattoo based on it. I have bought these little freaks. I've got another one on the way. I've got like 250 hours in it. So the concept of the game it's 1960s America. You have been kidnapped and taken to a secret facility where they make you do trials to earn your freedom. It's CIA-funded Saw. The trials you have to do are frankly horrible, and I want to reveal what actually happens when you earn your freedom. And I'm going to start with the aesthetics as audio and visual designer. Very important part. Specifically, I'll first talk about the environments and turn it down a little bit. As these trials are in fabricated environments, taking place inside a giant warehouse, they're real but simultaneously not. You're always being watched by CCTV and guards and doctors. The walls look like bricks but are actually just wallpaper that look like bricks. There's mannequins set up to fill the environment. But the danger is very real. This uncanny environment gives you a sense of immersion, but it's a constant sense that things are off. Oh, and there's blood and dead bodies everywhere, but a part of your condition is getting used to that. So what is the danger? In this game, it's other humans. People who have been so mentally messed up by being in these places for so long that it's made them intensely violent. Yeah. Or people who are simply that messed up that they have been brought into the environment so they can influence you and your therapy. The whole design philosophy of the game is the enemies are humans and can only do things that humans can do, but it skirts around pure realism with things like artificial limb lengthening and some vaguely mystical elements, a little bit of science fiction. So, this guy. His name is Leland Coyle. He was born in 1923. Former police officer, got fired because his wives kept dying under mysterious circumstances. Also former military and former member of the KKK. And with an electrified baton, he sees electricity, specifically lightning, to be God's form of punishment, reaching down from heaven to smite you. I'm sorry. There is also some psychosexual stuff going on with the shape of the weapon, you know, big rod, and how he keeps using it to electrify people's, like so many corpses with just like scorch marks, like, anyway. An all-round swell guy. And now that he's after you because you interrupted his playtime with a prisoner. So for me, the most scary enemy, I guess you would say, threat, is called the Jaeger. Yeah, we'll load it. Her name was originally Henrietta Gross, a fellow victim of the trials, subject to hormone baths and bone extension, which is why she is so fucking massive. She became lost and ended up in a facility's biohazard disposal sector, where she survived by eating the flesh of corpses that had been thrown out when they had no more use. When she was discovered again, she was kidnapped and turned into the Jaeger. Kitted out with deadly armor and having been so deprived of human connection, she obeys the voices on the radio as she thinks they will look after her. The voices are directing her to you and telling her to murder you. In game, this means she walks towards you endlessly. She cannot be stopped, and as soon as she gets close to you, it's dead time. She can appear in any trial at any time with a warning siren, and every time I hear it, my heart jumps. She immediately applies pressure to the trial, and you can't sneak around anymore because she will catch up. You can't hide as she will find you. And I completely messed up there. At
So, can you stop these enemies? Can you defend yourself? No, not really. The design of the game limits your ability to fight back, because if you give the player the ability to destroy the danger, then it's no longer as threatening. Doom, the video game, isn't a horror game because you can blow everything up with a rocket launcher. Doom would be a horror game if you only had a knife. So how do you get through the trials? Stealth. Avoiding being seen and heard, throwing balls to cause distractions, which I did just there. Throwing bricks at the enemies to create some distance and stop them stabbing you. And then the game asks you to do things that make a lot of noise and cause the enemies to know where you are and then come to stab you anyway. When you've been spotted, you're being chased, the best solution is to run and hide. What's my time at now?
Just 12 minutes.
Yep, go. As you can see, the game is very dark, but you are equipped with night vision goggles, which have been surgically attached to your skull. But this night vision has limited battery, so if you're hiding from an enemy, the best thing you can do is turn off your night vision and listen. The audio design in this game is amazing. It uses realistic binaural filtering, aka it sounds like how sounds would sound with a head. And simulated reverberation spaces create a very realistic sense of space. And then every enemy has their own distinct sound to them, so you can still identify who they are and where they are, even if it's just in complete darkness. I was going to do a compilation clip with different examples of sounds, but it is 10 a.m. while I'm writing this, and I don't have time to do that. Now, one element of horror is fear of the unknown. The scariest time you'll play a game is the first time when you don't know what to expect. You'll be scared to keep going because you don't know what you're going to find. Yeah, there are times when I play this game where I'm doing a trial I've done before and I know what to expect, like quite often, because 240 hours. And yeah, it'll be tense and disgusting, but I'm not actively afraid of the unknown. But they solve this by bringing out new trials and new enemies. Like this asshole. Not that, that's just another victim. So Lilia looks like a mannequin, and her trial is filled with mannequins. She stands still and pretends to be a mannequin. And then you have to go up to the mannequins to take jewels off them. Which means you're constantly on edge and you don't know where she is, where she could be hiding, or if she's literally sneaking up on you and she spotted you before you could spot her. It is terrifying. I don't think I will ever do this one without being scared of her jumping on me all the time. See, I didn't hear her going into the room. So everything I've learned about being able to identify enemies and figure out where they are just completely goes out the window. Again, I did not hear her sneaking above me there. Or there. I love this game. So, in conclusion, horror games should utilize several game design elements and have them work in unison. Aesthetic design, visual, environmental sound. It has to feel scary, tense, disturbing, and disgusting. It has to strip away control. I'm getting tired, please stop. So how do you make a good horror video game? You make Outlast Trials, or Little Nightmares, or Silent Hill 2, or Resident Evil 2 or 7 or 8. But that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for coming to my KEV Talk. Recording?
Yep.
Okay, so as you can tell from a big ass logo on the screen, I'm doing my presentation on Formula 1. Work, you stupid. What is Formula 1? It's the highest level of international single-seat or auto racing. Features the world's fastest circuit racing cars, driven by elite drivers and built by teams using cutting-edge technology. The sport runs a global competition with races or Grand Prix held on tracks and street circuits around the world, where drivers and teams compete for seasonal titles based on their results. It takes place annually between March and December. Although motorsport dates back to the late 1800s, Formula 1 began in 1950 with the first official World Championship race being held in the United Kingdom at Silverstone on the 15th of May 1950. It evolved from pre-World War II European Grand Prix racing and quickly became the pinnacle of motorsport. Over the decades, Formula 1 has been shaped by major technological advances, legendary drivers, and growing global popularity, while increasing emphasis on safety following several tragic accidents. Today, it is a worldwide sport combining innovation, competition, and entertainment. Here's some drivers. Don't ask me why they're good.
Okay, I've actually seen Kimi Räikkönen when I was in Finland. Went to a shopping centre and my girlfriend was like, "That's Kimi Räikkönen."
That is sick.
Oh, okay.
Some of them are current, some of them are old, some of them are dead. A Grand Prix is a single race event that takes place over a weekend and includes practice sessions, a qualifying session to design the starting grid, and the main race, during which a total of 20 drivers compete over a fixed number of laps. It's different on every circuit. As of 2024, there are 24 Grand Prix across 21 countries in a season, though this hasn't always been the case. Originally there were only 7. These are the current ones, and here are some ones that are going to be added in the near future. I think this spans across like 5 continents. I'm not entirely sure. Here's the current constructors and their engine manufacturers. McLaren is one of the most successful and historic teams in Formula 1. Founded in 1963 by New Zealand driver Bruce McLaren, the team made its F1 debut in 1966. McLaren are based in Woking, United Kingdom, and currently compete as McLaren Formula 1 team. They dominated parts of the late 1980s and 90s. They've won 8 Constructors' Championships and 12 Drivers' Championships. I'll get to that later. With legendary drivers such as, I've kind of mentioned them anyway. The current drivers are Ronaldo, Norris, and Piastri. Ferrari, currently competing in Scuderia Ferrari HP, is the oldest and most successful team in Formula 1. Founded by Enzo Ferrari and competing in every F1 season since 1950. Based in Maranello, Italy, they've won 16 Constructors' Championships and 15 Drivers' Championships, more than any other team. They're deeply tied to F1 history and passion with legendary drivers. Again, I can't be bothered to say their names. They dominated the early 200s with Schumacher achieving 5 consecutive drivers' titles. The current drivers are Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. Red Bull Racing, competing as Oracle Red Bull Racing and known as Red Bull or RBR, is a modern powerhouse in Formula 1 founded in 2005 after Red Bull purchased the Jaguar Formula 1 team. Based in Milton Keynes, the team quickly rose to the top, winning 6 Constructors' Championships and 7 Drivers' Championships. They dominated 2010 to 2013 with Sebastian Vettel, and again in 2020 with Max Verstappen. The current drivers are Max Verstappen and Isaac Hadjar. Racing Bulls are Toro Rosso. Racing Bulls are a Formula 1 team based in Vicenza, Italy, and serve as Red Bull's sister team, focused on developing young talent. Founded in 2006 as Toro Rosso, it was later renamed to AlphaTauri and then rebranded again in 2014 as Visa Track Shop, or the Car Formula One team, commonly referred to as Racing Bulls. Their highlight achievement is the Italian Grand Prix victory Sebastian Vettel. The current drivers are Lando and Limbo. Williams Racing, legally known as the Williams Grand Prix Engineering Limited, and competing at last seen Williams Racing, are one of Formula One's most historic teams. Founded in 1977 by Sir Frank Williams, based in Grove, United Kingdom, they are the first most successful team in F1 history, with 9 Constructors' Championships and 7 Drivers' Championships. They enjoyed major success in the 1980s and 90s with legendary drivers like the names you see on screen. The drivers are Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon. Alpine/Renault. Alpine, competing as BWT Alpine Formula One team, are owned by French manufacturer Renault and have been competing under the Alpine name since 2021. Based in Enstone, UK, with their engines being made in somewhere in France, the team continues Renault's F1 history. Renault won 2 Constructors' Championships and 2 Drivers' Championships with Fernando Alonso in 2005 and 2006. Their current drivers are Pierre Gasly and Franco Colapinto. Aston Martin, Aramco Formula One team, a British Formula One constructor based in Silverstone, United Kingdom, founded in 1959. Aston Martin competed in Formula One since 1950 to 1960, but decided to leave as they failed to score any points. The Aston Martin Aramco Formula One team returned to F1 in 2021 after Racing Point was rebranded following investment by Leonard Stroll, bringing the iconic name back to the sport after over 60 years. The car drivers are Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso. Haas, competing as TGR Haas F1 team, is an American Formula One team founded in 2016 by businessman Gene Haas. Based in Canapolis, Italy, with operations in Italy and the UK, Haas is the first fully American-owned F1 team in decades. The current drivers are Esteban Ocon and Oliver Barron. Mercedes competes Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team, based in Brackley, United Kingdom, and were originally founded in 1954. Mercedes first succeeded in F1 in 1954, but that team withdrew. The Mercedes Formula One team in its current form was founded in 2010 when Mercedes-Benz returned to F1 after purchasing Braun GP. Mercedes is one of the most dominant teams in F1. The teams dominated from 2014 to 2021, winning 8 consecutive Constructors' Championships and 7 Drivers' Championships, mainly for Lewis Hamilton. The current Mercedes drivers are George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. Sauber/Audi. Sauber Motorsport AG, founded in Hemel, Switzerland as PP Sauber by Peter Sauber in 1970. They made their F1 debut in 1973. Sauber competed as BMW Sauber from 2006 to 2009, during which they achieved their first and only victory. In 2010, the BMW withdrew and the team reverted back to its original name. Sauber returned to F1 in 2024, competing as Stake F1 team Kick Sauber, also known as Kick Sauber or just Sauber. In 2025, it was announced that Audi had purchased Sauber and they will compete as the Audi Revolut F1 team in 2026. The current drivers are Nico Hulkenberg and Gabriel Bortoleto. They did also a brief stint as Aston Martin, but who cares? They're a separate team. Cadillac is an upcoming Formula One team founded in 2025, set to enter the championship next year. It's backed by Cadillac, the American luxury car brand, under the name of General Motors. The Cadillac drivers are Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez. A Drivers' World Championship is a competition to determine the best driver. Michael Schumacher and Lewis Hamilton won it most times with 7 wins, and Sebastian Vettel holds the record for being the youngest. Here is everyone that's won it. The Constructors' Championship is to determine the best constructor. Ferrari have won this most with 16 wins. Here's the Constructors' winners. And here's some random facts. McLaren hold the world record for the fastest pit stop, set in Qatar in 2023 and was pit stopped at 1.80 seconds. beating the previous record of 1.83 set by Red Bull in 2019 at the Brazilian Grand Prix. F1 cars can go from 0 to 100 in 4 seconds. Brake discs can reach 1000 degrees Celsius and tyres can get up to 120 degrees Celsius. An F1 car has around 80,000 parts and the steering wheels have over 25 buttons, and the average F1 car costs about £9.2 million. Thank you.
Rolling.
Thank you. Okay, so the Sims franchise has been falling apart for a decade and I have literally nobody to talk to about this, so this is like the perfect excuse for me to just be mad at you for 15 minutes for free.
At me!
And you, Kevin. Okay, so The Sims is a video game. It is a life simulator and it's considered the grandfather of that entire genre of games, and it's essentially where you have a bunch of people and you control their lives. So this was made by big girl Will Wright. He lost his home in the Oakland firestorm of 1991 and he wanted to sort of gamify his experience of rebuilding his life and home from nothing. He intended the game as like a satirical take on American consumerism. He was inspired by 1970s architecture and a bunch of psychological stuff like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It was always intended to be kind of like ripping into like American capitalism and culture, and you can see it right through like the sort of like jitsy shopping music and all that kind of stuff. This was the first Sims game. We love her. She was released in 2000, making her officially vintage. I just wanted to remind everyone present.
Yeah, I played it on release.
It was one of the best-selling PC games of all time. If you disagree, you're incorrect. And it was gay. So one of the main things about The Sims was they didn't differentiate the romance. So they didn't make The Sims strictly straight, because it would have been more difficult to like code them as like either straight or like whatever. So one of the developers was incredibly insistent on keeping gay Sims in the game because he was basically like, you're homophobic and stupid if you don't want this. So this was also incredibly revolutionary for the video game industry. We love it. It's a top-down isometric game, and yeah. The Sims 2 is widely considered the fan favourite. It released 4 years later, which is still vintage, just so everyone's aware. It's messy. So The Sims 2 had some iconic returning Sims, like the Goth family, who were based on the Addams family, but they also introduced a lot of the mainstays for the series. So you've got like the Grog family, you've got the Dreamers, you've got the Calientes, like these are all just messy bitches in video game form. So like a lot of the pre-made families, you can either create your own little family and you can control them and sort their lives, you can give them jobs, whatever, but there's also pre-made families that are living in the town that you can either play as or interact with. And The Sims 2 had like implied murder of a husband, there's somebody who gets left at the altar, people go insane, there's like infidelity underneath the wife's nose with a maid. It's crazy. And that is often why people consider this their favourite, is because like she was made with so much heart. And I believe off the top of my head, this is the last game that Will Wright was involved in, and a lot of people are like, after this, death in the series, which I was 2, so I don't have an opinion. That's fine. So Sims 3 was released in 2009. It is my awesome origin story and my introduction to the series. It is my go-to study music. And in my opinion, it was the most ambitious of all 4 games. They introduced an open world. So previously, when you would play The Sims, you would have just one neighborhood or one household, and that's what you would focus on. Whereas in Sims 3, you could have one person at home doing whatever, you could have somebody at their job, you could have someone at the park meeting people, and you're playing all of them at the same time. And there was like full customization, there was color wheels for everything. If you didn't like the color of a couch, who cares? Make it pink leopard print, you can do that. And it was also incredibly taxing on basically any PC system if you have all the packs. The only reason I don't play The Sims 3 anymore is because I could hear my PC fan from downstairs when I tried to run it. But we love her. She was, I think, in my opinion, she was the best one, but don't tell her that. The Sims 4 released in 2014, and that is the first and last good news I have about the circumstances of this game's release. I was on a school trip when this came out, and our internet was so bad that I had Origin, which is like the game library, open on my laptop, and I left this to download for the days that I was away from home. And when I came back, it had failed. I had a meltdown. It was a whole thing. Anyway, on release, this game lacked a lot of the things that were present in the base game of the old games. So basically, you get the base game of The Sims, where it's like, here's all the basic shit you can do, and then they would release packs that you could then pay for. So if you wanted to have like more furniture, more jobs, like vampires, whatever else, then you give the overlords at EA more money. Upon release, The Sims 4 had no swimming pools, the maps were completely textureless, barren wastelands, there was no toddlers, so if you had a baby, they would just jump out of their cot and suddenly be 12 years old. It was incredibly upsetting. And there was also more complicated issues, such as a lack of darker skin tones, a lack of black hairstyles. The darkest hair swatch was like blue. It was really odd. And yeah, there was just a lot missing from this game. And people were not happy. And they also didn't like the change in art direction, but I personally think it's cute. I don't care. So, boring, shrunken, and sterile was a quote from a critic upon this game's release. The Sims 4 did not follow the same development path as The Sims in previous games. It was originally intended to be an online multiplayer experience where multiple people could play together in, like, as if it was a massively multiplayer online experience. However, shortly before this game, which was nicknamed Project Olympus, was due to release, SimCity, which was another game in the franchise, we don't really care about her, flopped so incredibly hard due to its mandatory internet connectivity and the fact that it just didn't work. And people hated that they had to be online to play a Sims game. Like, the landscape for like the Sims fans is very much like cozy gamer, sitting at home, like everyone from like children through to like older players, a lot of women, like we're not here for like the hardcore online killing each other experience, which I would love to know if they were planning to incorporate that, but yeah. So when SimCity completely flopped, they panicked and tried to immediately pivot The Sims 4 into a single-player experience, which is why the game was so lacking. Because they basically took the shambling corpse of fucking Club Penguin and were like, we need to make a Sims game out of this. And that's why she's mad as fuck, in my opinion. However, please look at my Sims. I work very hard on them. I'm using less mods these days. I would say presently The Sims 4 is not bad. They fixed a lot of those problems I was yapping about. Disability is actually recognised in this game more than in any previous game, with the addition of glucose monitors, hearing aids, alert necklaces for elderly Sims. However, they still haven't added like canes or wheelchairs. This game is by far the queerest out of all of them. You've got fully customizable pronouns, visibly trans Sims that can wear binders, shapewear, etc. Fully customizable polyamory and the ace-demi spectrum. And a lot of like very obviously like pride-themed clothing and items, and actually ones that are cute as well, that you don't just have to have a pride flag anymore. You can have like a knitted pride tapestry. It's very cute, we love it. I will say there was some controversy with the release of the binder because it's actually just a tank top. They didn't care enough to code it to work as a binder. So if your Sim has boobs, they will. It's a really shitty Temu binder. Babies have rights. Upon release, babies were just objects, and that's not even an exaggeration. You could like sell your baby. You could put your baby. You could put your baby into storage for when you move house.
See, technically you can do that in real life too.
Yeah, Kevin. They were confined to this bassinet. You could not you could lift them out and cuddle them and then put them back in, and that is where they rot until they turn into a toddler, which they eventually added. Now babies have rights. They have developmental milestones, they can crawl around, they can live their lives, we love it. Improvements have been made to cultural inclusivity, so they've added richer, deeper skin tones, better hair for black Sims, and they've also collaborated with a lot of creators of colour, and a lot of the packs are based on non-Eurocentric or American countries. Though there is more criticism that we have to pay to be in Southeast Asia. Anyway. The base game was made entirely free in 2022. I think I paid too much money for it. And again, look at my Sims. I worked very hard on them. This one's a fairy, this one's a vampire. All of them are gay, we love it. Psych! This game sucks! Off the top of my head, these are all bugs that have existed in the game as of the last year and are either not fixed or were only fixed very recently. So this is a glitch where when a child loses a tooth, they turn into a void. This is the disappearing photos glitch, where in-game photos are sometimes many real-life years old disappear, which is devastating for players that like to play through every generation of their family. This is the pause glitch, where whenever you pause the game, your sim would slowly turn to stare at you. There are multiple writing issues in the game where they will act as if they have chronic zoochosis. This is the melting toddlers glitch, where sometimes toddlers would look like that. Multiple animals in the game, such as dogs, cats, foxes, will sometimes attempt human animations and look like that. Sims constantly are obsessed with drinking water, juice, and milk, and they will not clean up these things, and then they will get mad because their home is full of filthy dishes. There was an incest glitch. This was also linked to when two Sims had a romantic interaction in front of a toddler. The toddler would then gain the romance bar. These often occurred together. This is a disappearing face glitch, sometimes your face disappears, and this is the baby oil glitch, where certain items will cause your Sims to look disgusting. On top of that, save game corruption is just accepted as a fact of the game at this point, where eventually, if you play long enough, you will not be able to play anymore, and your entire save file will completely destabilize. If you go to too many lots, if you build too many houses, if you put too many plants in your one room of your house, if you have more than one rental lot, it's over. Good luck. You're not playing your game anymore. You're losing your Sims forever, and you will cry about it. And also, collectively, all of the packs for The Sims 4 as of present cost over £1,000. I forgot to put that in there. Yeah, sometimes children look like that, but as somebody who's worked in a nursery, that is not entirely inaccurate. So, yeah. Anyway, if you're paying for this game, you're a psychopath. The Sims 4 is probably one of the most pirated games I don't remember if that's true, but it is a lot of people's introduction to game piracy, and there are two sort of main players in that scene: Fit Girl, who does a lot of repacks of games. You didn't hear that from me, and Anadius. Anadius is a very interesting, allegedly singular person. He's kind of insane, but he was also very well respected. Unfortunately, Sims players are categorically the worst people on the planet, and they would not respect this. They basically heard, I can get this shitty game for free. I'm gonna bother you about this until you fix it for me. So eventually, as of last month, Anadius decided, fuck you guys, I'm not going to give you this game anymore. He developed the Sims 4 Updater, which made pirating this game as simple as clicking a button and selecting what packs you wanted. Whereas, obviously, if you're experienced on the sea, it takes a lot more than just clicking a button. but people harassed him so much that this tool is like no longer functional. And this made people very angry because the alternative is paying over £1,000 for a game that doesn't work. Also, people are already trying to scam people by releasing Patreon versions of the Sims 4 updater on a website that requires your full name and address and payment information, which is a very good idea if you're doing something illegal. So, on the back of this, EA sold a bunch of shit to some people that we don't like. In 2025, they announced that Sims, among other franchises, will be sold to private investors for upwards of $55 billion. This includes the Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund and Jared Kushner's Infinity partners like Trump administration Kushner, who funnels all the money from his business adventures into the Trump administration. This is a massive problem for a series that is widely loved by queer people and women, and obviously people of color as well. So like, the biggest tool for playing this game free being removed is making a lot of people very nervous because they are like, I want to keep playing this game, but I also don't want to die. So yeah, this led to a mass exodus of Sims YouTubers and custom content creators from the EA Creative Network, basically leaving and being like, I don't want to be paid by you guys anymore, I don't want to be a mouthpiece for this anymore. And Sims players calling for a boycott, which historically they suck at. They can't even torrent a file, they don't know how to organize a boycott. So they responded by releasing a SpongeBob pack. I know that like some people are going to be looking at this and be like, wow, that's so cute. I want to play The Sims again. Oh my god, look, that's like bon voyage, we love it. In being in the trenches of this announcement, after Inadius went down, The Sims is being sold to some really awful people for really awful reasons, and Max is being like, hey, I want a PNG Barnacle Boy. It was bedlam. You couldn't go anywhere without people just losing their domes about the Bikini Bottom bundle. Historically, like, brand collaborations with The Sims have been useful. They have collaborated with like H&M for clothes, IKEA for furniture. People feel a little bit sour about it just being like a PNG Barnacle Boy. I do like Barnacle Boy, but still. This was not taken well. And also, recent news is that there will never be a Sims 5, ever. It's been confirmed that The Sims 4 will continue to receive updates and paid content. They are not developing a 5th edition of the game over a decade after release. They're not planning to develop a 5th game over a decade after release. They did announce this weird, like, Project Renee thing, which people were really excited because they were like, oh my god, a new generation of The Sims, this could be The Sims 5. No, it's a mobile game. We like mobile games, and it will also be online, which has never gone wrong ever in the history of this franchise. There also is an alleged remaster of The Sims 4, leading to concerns that we will have to re-buy all of the content, or that they're going to like massively fuck it up, because every time they update the game, toddlers gain more bones, and it's very upsetting.
That is the scariest sentence I've ever heard.
Yeah. And it also just looks like a little SoundCloud rapper. In conclusion, I love this game still. I have Stockholm Syndrome. I play it instead of writing my essays, and if you do want to get back into The Sims 4 in its current state, I recommend just making it messy. The Sims has been like massive for like the game modding community. It's how a lot of people have learned to code and mod games. These are just like extra things you can download that are made by the community. I really like ones that add like extra moods and stuff. The brawling mod, you get to punch people. There's like a LGBTQIA plus mod, which like fleshes out like a lot of the queer aspects of the game. Base metal drugs adds drugs, and as well as a functional alcohol system. These are cute little animation mods, and okay, Bones is fun.
Mm-hmm. I wonder what that's about.
I'm ready if you're ready.
Rolling.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have to read my notes because otherwise we'll be here all day. I've been practicing this, and the only way to do it in time is to read it. So, shaken, not stirred. It's basically how that aeroplane there embarrassed the Norwegian government. You'll find out why. Now, in 1974, British Lion Films made a film called Ransom, released in the USA under the title The Terrorists, and it starred Sean Connery and Ian McShane. It did well at the box office and still has the occasional viewing on television. It involves a hostage situation, a hijacking in the fictitious country of Scandinavia. I'll not give away the plot in case anyone wants to see the film without me spoiling it, so I'll just instead show the trailer that came with it.
The atmosphere is still tense here at the British ambassador's residence in the mountains.
2 teams of professional terrorists hold a nation to ransom. The man on the ground is Shepherd. In this house, he has a British ambassador as hostage. The man in the air is Petrie. He doesn't need an ambassador. He has a whole plane full of passengers at his mercy.
Captain Douglas, your aircraft is wired up to explode. You will do exactly as I said.
The man in the middle is Talbot, head of security.
If we give in now, you'll have another hijack next week and the week after.
Sean Connery is Talbot, a man who's got 2 tigers by the tail, and he'll see them in hell before he turns them loose.
He gets it first.
That's it, finished by. Now, filming for that was carried out in Norway, with a large part of it taking place in Oslo, at Oslo Airport, which is that one, Fornebu, which is actually now closed. Now, the aircraft used in the hijacking was a Boeing 737 in the livery of Mayair. Now, unusually for a film, the aircraft wasn't disguised as a fictitious airline. It was actually loaned out by the owner of Mayair, Hans Otto Meyer, a Norwegian finance and shipping magnate. There were no special effects, no CGI used in the film. The flying scenes were real, and the flames that you saw coming from the undercarriage in that clip, they were real. So the insurance premium for the use of the aircraft must have been phenomenal. Now, during filming, the cast were invited to a dinner party hosted by Meyer at his house in Oslo. After dinner, Connery and McShane were invited down to the basement for what Otto Meyer described as the entertainment. And he took them downstairs, stopped at a row of wardrobes, and he stood on one of the floor tiles, and then he found an almost invisible switch high up on the wall, and at the same time a sound came out from behind one of the cupboards. When both were pressed together, the wall then slid apart and revealed a large strong room door. This was the entrance to a secret room. Inside the room was a complete arsenal, large amounts of weapons, ammunition, rocket launchers, grenades, uniforms, radios, rations, etc., all carefully stored. Wondering if Mayer was an ultra-right-wing extremist what they were seeing, they asked if he was planning a revolution or something. I also have 2 tanks in the country. We were caught napping by the Germans in 1940. Will not be caught napping again, was the response from Mayer. Now, very little was said by Connery or McShane about the incident for many years. Now, Hans Otto Mayer, or Toto Mayer as he was known, was one of the country's richest men. He was unorthodox, popular in style, more often seen in jeans and a cap than wearing a suit and tie. He was a sort of Norwegian version of Richard Branson. Now, Mayer ceased operations in February 1974 and filed for bankruptcy 2 days later. The aircraft was actually repossessed by Boeing during the filming of Ransom, although it remained at Fornebu for a time. Mayer was pushed out of the family shipping company, which was amongst the largest in the country. He still ran a business, but on a much smaller scale, and faded into obscurity. Fast forward 4 years later, at the end of October 1978, the police in Oslo arrested Mayer for suspected illegal brewing and distilling of alcohol. Police assistant Benedict de Vieb also informed Mayer that they'd heard something about a secret in his villa from several sources and that they were going to search it. Now, he'd been told about a secret room which Mayer originally denied but eventually confirmed. Mayer gave strict instructions that the police must stay away, far, far away from the basement, stating it's a military area. He gave them the number of a person in Norwegian intelligence, and if De Vieb contacted them, everything would be explained. But the reply came back that nobody there knew of Otto Mayer, they'd never had anything to do with him. So he then gave them another number, and this was the top or second in command of the Norwegian intelligence service. But the answer was exactly the same. This man is completely unknown to us. He's had nothing to do with either the armed forces or the E section, which is the Norwegian Secret Service. After this, the police launched a raid on Mayer's house. They roamed the house for many hours and behaved appallingly to the occupants. They put pressure on Mayer's wife, who at the time was dying of cancer. They threatened to demolish the house if the secret location of the room wasn't revealed. In the end, Mayer told them how to find the room, but warned them that there would be trouble. De Vieb and several officers went down to the basement and found the wardrobes. And following Mayer's instructions, the wall began to split open. A heavy safe-like door appeared with the sign, "High voltage, danger to life." The door was over 30 centimetres thick, hardened steel and closed with a combination lock. In addition to the high voltage power, the door was equipped with several deadly traps, amongst other things a submachine guns mounted in the wall, which automatically opened fire if somebody tried to break in, but fortunately it was disconnected when the police went into action. So don't open any of those doors, they might be armed. On the floor, the bunker-like room, I'm getting in a muddle here. The bunker-like room was a giant weapons depot. In addition to shotguns, machine guns, grenades and other weapons, they found anti-tank missiles, flamethrowers, lots of advanced silent killers with large silencers, and stuff basically straight out of a James Bond film. The room was filled with the Cold War in mind and was almost like a bomb shelter. On the floor, there were boxes with several hundred kilos of explosives and ammunition. Much was without serial numbers and completely impossible to trace. And there was enough equipment there to supply over 100 men. It was thought it was a stash for illegal civil protection groups because the armed forces and the E-Service had denied anything to do with the weapons that Mayer possessed. During interrogation, Hans Mayer claimed he was an agent and had special permission to store the arsenal. Mayer himself claimed the rank of captain and was subject to a strict duty of confidentiality. He declared the duty of confidentiality sacred and refused to say any more. According to official documents, his relationship with the army had finished in the 1960s. Mayer then explained that he belonged to a special type of personnel who were not openly registered with the armed forces. Both the armed forces and the E-Service had already denied having anything to do with Mayer. So the media were given the story and it became a public sensation. David referred to Mayer as a criminal and a right-wing extremist weapons collector. In the newspaper columns, Mayer was described as a rich man with a sense of drama, and it was ruled out that he was an agent or affiliated with any of the armed services. There was chaos in the country's political and military circles. Was Mayer's claim correct? And if so, why had no one informed them about this? The intelligence services premises in Oslo became a hive of activity after the arrest. One of those trying to handle the crisis was Lieutenant Colonel Sven Olistad, and he worked in the service's Section D. Olistad was called into the offices of the Chief of the E-Service, Colonel Frederick Bull Hansen. Olistad denied any connection with Mayer, and he insisted that Mayer had nothing to do with them. On the 9th of November, the Minister of Defence, Rolf Hansen, announced to the Norwegian Parliament that Mayer's story was complete and utter nonsense, and the Armed Forces High Command then set out a press release. Apart from regular first-time military service, Mayer has nothing to do with the armed forces. At the same time, they denied knowledge of the weapons in his basement, and as far as everyone was concerned, that was the end of the matter. But a new anonymous tip surfaced of mysterious letters, both to the E-Service and to the press. Attached were photos of Olistad together with Otto Mayer. The pictures were taken from a ship naming ceremony in Sweden. So now Olistad had a major problem. In his boss's office, he had to confess Mayer was an agent, but was no longer directly connected to the E-Service. Mayer had been part of the secret group that saw daylight right after World War II. Since 1957, Olistad had led this unit and benefited both from money and the services of Otto Mayer. What happened next became embarrassing for everyone involved. Just a week after the first explanation, a shamefaced E-Chief had to tell his superiors that they'd been misinformed, and the Minister of Defence once again had to stand in Parliament, this time to say that what he'd said previously was not correct. Mayer was in fact part of a secret plan to secure the country against external enemies, but that relationship had ended in 1964. In a new press release, the Armed Forces High Command, as Mayer claimed all along, admitted that the weapons came from the armed forces, that they were not returned. The claim was only a matter of an unfortunate mistake. So what was this mysterious organisation? Right after World War II, there was a real fear that the Soviet Union in the West, a real fear of the Soviet Union in the West. The Soviets had already engulfed large parts of Europe, and many were afraid that the same would happen to Norway. The country had to be ready to face the Soviets, and preparations took place in the deepest secrecy. In 1947, the Minister of Defence, Jens Christian Horger, worked on the idea to utilise the experiences from fighting against the Germans to sabotage any invasion. Members of this secret network were former saboteurs, agents and high-ranking business leaders, initially funded by the United States and the United Kingdom through the CIA and MI6. In 1948, the network was formally controlled by the E-Service's Section D, named the Stay Behind Army. Everything was so secret that only a handful of people knew about it. Sean Connery and Ian McShane learned of some of the secrets at the party when Mayer accidentally revealed the purpose of the weapons depot, possibly to impress a person he briefly imagined at the time was James Bond. Otto Mayer himself was recruited in 1954 to the Stay-Behind Army. Through the family shipping company's boats, which regularly visited the Soviet ports, he had unique access to spy on the Soviet Navy. He'd been in the armed forces, he had a lot of radio and telegraphy knowledge, and after the war he assisted with the construction of the liaison service within the intelligence services. In the 1950s and 60s, such groups were active in most NATO countries. Similarly, networks were also being built up in other countries that feared the Soviet Union, including Sweden, Finland, Denmark, and several other countries. So how did this secret escape? It's believed that the story of the strong room in Mayer's house leaked out to a few people after Sean Connery and Ian McShane's visit was known about by somebody, possibly with a grudge, within the E-Service, who then leaked the information, but the real reason will never be known. So it was by pure coincidence, the top secret network was revealed. A hidden army with a base in a house in the middle of Oslo, built up unknown to Parliament and without political control, with close ties to the CIA and MI6, probably the most secret part of Norwegian intelligence after the Second World War. For nearly 30 years, not even the country's Prime Minister had known about Stay-Behind. After the revelations, weapons depots all over Norway were removed. This happened in the deepest secrecy. Large parts only needed to be destroyed after years in damp caves and cellars. Much of the equipment was both outdated and useless. During the 1980s, the Stay-Behind Army was gradually decommissioned. After a major reorganisation in 1983, what remained was subject to much more stricter control. Nevertheless, a version of Stay-Behind still exists today. And as for Mayer himself, how did he fare after this revelation? No charges were ever brought against Mayer over the weapons. They were never seen or mentioned again. But Hans Otto Mayer is quoted saying, "One should not expect any thanks for trying to do the country a favour after the war, but never have I received any kind of inquiry from the commanders. Not a handshake, not a single small apology. I was simply kicked out into the cold." Otto Mayer died in 2002 and never got an apology for himself or for his family from the authorities or from the media from the way he was treated. I'll end now with a clip from 2006. It was the Oscar ceremony when Sean Connery received a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the terrorists, Ian McShane. It's great to be here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to take you back to 1974, the place, Oslo, Norway, the film The Terrorists, the weather, freezing. Sean and I were doing this film about terrorists, and 40% of it took place on an aeroplane. And, they got this aeroplane from this rich guy in Norway, Mr. Mayer, and as usual, they shill the actors, get you out there to schmooze up to the guy who's, giving a lot of money towards the film. And so we had him get, and we were at this big table, and he's, "Well, you're not eating, what is in the glass table, and on the table, you're eating that," and everybody's, whacking back the homemade wine or whatever, and he says, "Now downstairs for the entertainment." So he says, "Sean, come with me," and Mr. McShane, so we go down, there's a little cupboard, he opens it, and inside this broom cupboard is M16s, M25s, bazookas, rifles, boxes of grenades. He turns and he says, "I also have 2 tanks in the country. We were caught napping in 42. We won't be caught napping again, So, anyway, we went to a nightclub, we got in some trouble. It was great, Sean, being with you. And we had a good time, apart from the Norwegians who get going, 007, 007, little poking around. What's with the poking? Eh? What's with the Now, we've known each other about, I don't know, 38 years.
I'll finish now with two really bad jokes. Now,
Yay!
if this story had happened in Sweden, it would be known as the Bjorn identity. And a spy fact, if James Bond was Norwegian, he'd be known as plus 4707.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, non-binaries, gays and straights. Welcome to this evening's final feature presentation of the night. The very small titled, a very brief summary of the timeline and alterations thereof in the Back to the Future trilogy, directed by Robert Zemeckis, starring Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. Released in 1985, 1989 and 1990, respectively. By me, Miss Beatrice Copeland. Age 28 and 3/4. Now, before we get started, I have four very important notes for you. The first is that everything I'm about to tell you is 100% factual and objective. There's no subjectivity whatsoever. I'm going to get absolutely nothing wrong. If you have any questions about that statement or anything else, no, you don't. Third, this is the first time I've done one of these, so please be nice. And lastly, there is a lot of information to get through and not a lot of time, so buckle the fuck up, kiddos. Now, starting with our little base timeline, there are four very specific years in the Back to the Future trilogy. We have 1885, 1955, 1985, and the far-off distant year, 2015. Now, we're going to refer to this as the prime line because it's the primary timeline, the prime timeline, as it were. Don't get used to her, she's not sticking around long. Okay, now jumping into the first film, we have very aptly a jump to the future, which is a massive jump from the morning of the 26th of October 1985 to 60 seconds into the future. That's right, we're starting off massive, and that trip, of course, is undertaken by our good boy Einstein. We call him Einie, he is the best dog in all of time and space. Now, he takes this trip in the fated Twin Pines Mall, opposite a JCPenney. Devastatingly, this mall and the JCPenney has been shut down since. And of course, he's undertaking this for the most valid of reasons, science. Can I get a yes, science?
Yes!
Thank you. Now, approximately 10 minutes later, there is a jump backwards in time from the exact same day to remember, the 5th of November 1955 at 6:15 in the morning, which is such a cruel time to have to be awake. And this is undertaken by our main boy, Mr. Marty McFly, seen here. Oh no, what have I done? It's alright, we'll figure it out.
What have you done?
I know what I've done. I am a professional. And we are from, because I had to test this earlier, I didn't have slides for it now. There we go. So, Mr. Marty McFly, what I meant to do was press the little button that allows me to do this. So, as you can see, perhaps because this is a very dark image, he is wearing a little radiation suit. That's because the flux capacitor, which is the thing that makes time travel possible, runs on 1.21 gigawatts of electricity energy. And of course, that is supplied using plutonium. Because why wouldn't it be? And he undertakes this from Twin Pines Mall to the exact same location in 1955, which is a farm owned by a man named Mr. Peabody. Now, Mr. Peabody had this crazy idea about breeding pine trees, and it's never actually specified in the film whether or not that worked, so I'm just going to assume that in the prime line it does. Of course, in our second timeline, don't worry, we'll get to that, it doesn't work because Marty McFly hates trees, he runs one of them over when he arrives. And of course, what is he fleeing in this specific circumstance but the Libyans? The Libyans! In their nice little Volkswagen camper van. Shout out to Volkswagen. Now, while he is in 1955, he will be staying there from the 5th of November to approximately 5 or 6 days later at exactly 10:04 p.m. While he is here, some really wild shit occurs, which is that he almost gets run over by his mother's father, so his grandfather, and his mother, a young teen at this point, instantly falls in love with him, which is absolutely fair because I also fell in love with Michael J. Fox the first time I laid eyes on him. She is determined to sleep with him. And in absolute horror, he decides to go to the sanest man that I've ever seen in my entire life, Dr. Emmett Brown, and say, hey, so you're about to invent time travel, and I'm here in a time machine that you built, please help me, I'm out of plutonium. To which Doc responds, listen, plutonium might be right where you come from, Future Boy, but right here, we ain't got that shit, so you're stuck here. I need 1.21 gigawatts, which can only be found in a bolt of lightning. Luckily, a bolt of lightning will occur later that night, so all that is left for Marty to do is make sure that his parents hook up, play the guitar, almost vanish from existence, and beat up local bully Beth Tannen. A great time is had by all. Now, this is where the fun begins, because we're jumping timelines. That's right, we're going from the 12th of November 1955 at 10:04 p.m. to the 26th of October 1985 at 1:24, which is approximately, if you recall, about 10 minutes before he left the first time. This is, of course, undertaken by Mr. Marty McFly. There we see the lightning itself. We are truly never forgetting November the 12th. I get chills every time I watch it. This trip is taken during the town square, and he does not crash into the cinema. Thank God, I'd never been able to watch this film otherwise. And all that occurs is just a little harmless timeline alteration, which is why we're on a secondary timeline. Don't worry, I'm sure that's the last time this will happen. Having done this, Marty McFly returns home and wakes up the following morning, and Dr. Emmett Brown has appeared. For some reason, having gone to the future and then immediately come back because something is wrong with Marty and Jennifer, his girlfriend's kids, and we have to talk about Marty and Jennifer's kids, and we have to fix their problems. So, at the end of the first film, this is what our timeline looks like. I am so pleased that animation works, you have no ideas. But that's not all, because when we jump from hither to thither, we do so in a flying time machine. This trip is undertaken by Marty, Doc, and Jennifer, because she's seen the time machine now, we can't just leave her. And they jump from the Lion Estate, which is the place where Marty lives, to the Express Highway. Look at that, it's like Britain in the middle of summer. Isn't it beautiful? Now, while they are here, they are going to stay here for approximately 3 hours, which is insane, because so much is about to go down. Because after saving Marty's kids, Marty decides, well, what's a little harmless betting while I'm at it? I'm just going to pick up this little sports almanac that has every winner from every sporting event from the day I'm born till 2015, and if I take it back with me, I can make just a little bit of extra cash on the side. While he's doing this, Jennifer is picked up by the local police department, being useful as ever, and is returned to her present home in 2015, where she discovers the most horrendous fate of all. She's old now. We also discover that Marty has broken his hand, barely plays guitar, and has literally just been fired. Everything is going great for the McFlys, thank you for asking. But while the McFlys and Emmett Brown are dealing with that shit, they leave the DeLorean, their time machine, unattended. And if you ever build a time machine and leave it unattended, I think you deserve exactly what happens. And what happens? Well, local bully Biff Tannen, now in his 70s or 80s, decides to jump back to his youth to give himself the almanac, which he has mysteriously found. And honestly, this is a really solid bit of CGI given it's 1985. Now, with the DeLorean and Biff returned to 2015, Emmett, Jennifer, and Doc all decide to return to the 26th of October 1985. However, you'll notice that we're jumping timelines again, because of course Biff had the fucking almanac, didn't he? So everything has gone to, aptly, hell. Unfortunately for Marty McFly, his life here is about as great as his life in 2015, because Biff has married his mother and literally murdered his father. Who's putting murder in children's films? The 1980s. Now, it's at this moment that we must take a brief stop so that I can introduce you to the reason why we're talking about alternate timelines. That's right, they've made it canon. Thank you, Dr. Emmett Brown. This is a very professional display, I think you'll agree. And he looks extraordinarily sane. He looks exactly how I look currently. You're not gonna fucking believe this. You know where we're going next? Back to 1955, that's right, everyone's favourite day. This trip is undertaken by the coolest guys on the face of the earth, Marty and Doc. That's right, they're just leaving Jennifer, because when they fix the timeline, and they will absolutely fix the timeline, we promise, everything will revert around Jennifer. There they are, up to some hijinks. Marty is encountering himself in 1955, because if you'll recall, they're already here, which means that there are currently 2 Martys and also 2 dogs. And of course, hijinks ensue. Biff Tannen is back, he literally won't leave, everything is absolutely fine, and we fixed it. So, what are we doing now? We're baiting for the sequel. What's 1885 doing here? Well, after everything goes well and Emmett Brown is no longer a committed, insane man, that's a story for another time. All of a sudden, there's a spark of lightning, it hits the DeLorean flips in on itself and absolutely vanishes into thin air, with us all presuming that Doc has probably died. It's alright, he's fine! Yay! Because not only is he alive and well in 1985, or 1885 as it should be, he has left the letter for Marty, which is being delivered by a man who has just lost a bet at the local post office, bless him. So, at the end of our second installment, the timeline looks a little something like this. Now, Doc specifically tells Marty not to come back for him, and Marty, of course, being an excellent friend, completely ignores his wishes and goes back to 1885. But wait, if the time machine has just vanished, how is he jumping timelines? Well, the machine's been here the whole damn time! That's right, because Dr. Brown went back in time in a time machine, and he has no use for the time machine. He just stored it in a fucking gold mine, like an absolute madman. And of course, Marty, being stuck in 1955, thinks, you know who's probably going to be delighted to see me? The man who's just sent me back to the future, Dr. Emmett Brown, and he is partaking in this time travel from a drive-in theatre to the Wild West, where he was assured that there are no Native Americans. Now, I'm a person with eyes, so I can't help but notice the Native Americans, and they throw some spears into the car and rupture its gas tank, so the DeLorean can't run on anything anymore. Now, while Marty is here, he is going to stay here for a few days, which is absolutely fine. During his time here, he will meet one of his early ancestors, Mr. Seamus Fly, who looks nothing like him. This is just a coincidence. And his wife, who looks suspiciously like Lorraine Payne. It's almost as if the McFlys have a type. Now, having done this, he goes to find our man Doc, who I'm sorry to tell you, is about to die, and not of old age, but because he owes Biff Tannen the sum total of approximately $39. I would also kill a man over $39, if I'm honest. And Doc responds, well, that's okay, because you're stuck here too. You know that time machine that uses gasoline to run? Yeah, gasoline's not going to be invented for about a century. And of course, while they're here, why not fall in love? What a beautiful thing to be doing. He's never looked so happy. I'm sure that will not come into play later. So how are we going to get that DeLorean up to the famous 88 miles per hour that it requires to travel into the future? That's right, we're going to use a fucking train! Now, the train unfortunately does not actually go 88 miles per hour, so the devices in the system within the train using some special chemicals that Doc has mysteriously crafted that allows it to go to the famed 88 miles per hour. However, it will mean that the train explodes when it hits 89 miles per hour, so absolutely no pressure at all, because this is the train track that they're doing it on. And if you have eyes, you'll notice that there's a mysterious lack of train track. Don't worry, I assure you that the time machine is going to hit 88 miles per hour and you are going to jump into the future where this is completed, and indeed that is exactly what happens. Everything is great, everything is grand, Marty is back, and then tragedy strikes. The DeLorean dies! It gets me every time, and I kid you not, during my research last night, I had to take a 5-minute tea break. It's the saddest scene in cinematic history, but we're gonna move on from it like nothing has happened. Because the good news is Marty and Doc are reunited. Doc decided to stay in 1885 with his love Clara. He has 2 boys, Jules and Vern, his little dog. And of course, he has turned a train into a flying time machine like an absolute mad lad. So our third installment looks a little something like this, which is so insanely concise. And at the end of all of that, do you want to see the timeline for the whole damn thing?
Yeah.
Look at them go, just jumping about all over the place. What a nice, normal, average-looking timeline. But wait, there's more! That's right, if you need more Back to the Future, you can play the video game, which came out in the early 2000s on Xbox, PlayStation, and the Wii, or you can no longer go to the ride at Universal Studios, which sort of acted as Back to the Future 4, but not really, we don't want to talk about it. Or you can do as I've done and get the graphic novels, of which there are 3, and they tell many extraordinary tales, such as how Doc and Marty became friends in the first place, and that time that Doc was enlisted for the Manhattan Project. Or you can try and find the animated series, God help you, or you can watch the goddamn musical. Anyway, that's all. Thank you for coming to my KEV Talk.
And now that's everyone. Yeah, thank you for coming to KEV Talks 2025. I guess the next one will be 2028 at this rate, so thank you.
Thank you.